Hello, friends, and welcome into another weekly update from our team here at North Carolina Family Policy Council. I'm Mitch, joined by John, Jerry, and this is the week ending Friday, August the 7th. It has been a busy week at the General Assembly for the State House of Representatives. The State Senate met last week, Jerry. We talked about that. But this week, the House came in, the Senate got out of town. The House met this week, and they picked up a few things that the Senate had given them the previous week, including 2 technical corrections bills to the state budget. We won't dive too deeply into that. But the big thing that the Senate did back in July was a conference report. They adopted a conference report on hemp-derived consumable products and regulating those. You've probably heard us talk about it. We've been talking to state representatives, state House members for the last month, and the State House of Representatives had the opportunity to take that up this week. John, did they or didn't they take that up this week?
Yeah, Mitch, unfortunately they did not. It was the subject of consideration and discussion, and frankly, a lot of misinformation as we were hearing from members and fellow lobbyists down in the legislature, just lots and lots of confusion, intentional diversionary tactics and things like that from folks who did not want to see that conference report passing. Was it Tuesday?
Yes, sir.
The legislative building was full of law enforcement officers, the Sheriff's Association, the chiefs of police, the district attorneys, State Highway Patrol, and other law enforcement
7 of them.
officers.
7 groups.
SBI, SBI that were there for a press conference in support of this conference report. Of course, we fully supported the conference report. We analyzed the bill. We studied it. We consulted with national experts on the issue and are convinced that it doesn't go as far as we would like it to go, which would be banning these harmful products outright for all ages, but it would have imposed some very significant restrictions, age limits, and made some great strides forward for families and children in North Carolina. And unfortunately, the bill was discussed, the conference report was discussed in the House Republican caucus, and the caucus decided not to move forward with it, which was very disappointing, to say the least.
Now, the House Republican caucus, as I'm sure the Democratic caucus, that what happens behind closed doors, they're sworn to secrecy, so we won't divulge or speculate on what happened in the caucus meeting, but you could clearly see when members left that caucus meeting right before, and by the way, it was an hour and a half long, almost an hour and 45 minutes long caucus meeting. When they left, Jerry, the members that supported HB 328 in that conference report, they had their heads hung low, and those that did not, they walked out per usual. Tell us a little bit more about this.
Well, as you say, what we understand within caucus, whatever's said is confidential. But by our meeting together with members over the days and weeks leading up to Tuesday, we heard a lot of the messages that I think were shared in that meeting. Some of it, sadly, from our understanding perspective, was clear misinformation. Mm-hmm. But this is, the hard part of how the process works. I know I actually mentioned last week, hopefully part of the good that happened with the delay in the House taking this up is they could be better informed. Well, unfortunately, some of the messages they were hearing were not giving them better information. It was confusing the issue. I know we talked about we could go on for a long time with all those messages. And we didn't even mention this, but I feel like I almost have to mention one message that happened the night before.
Yes.
We had heard that the Governor Stein was supportive of this measure, did want some changes to be made down the road to make adjustments in what was going to happen. 8 o'clock or so the night before, on Monday night, social media from the governor's office came out, pointed not to the good that would happen with this bill, but pointed, one of the things that we are concerned about, we didn't want kratom to be legalized. I know it was going to make synthetic kratom illegal. But he was pointing to that, and then he said something about, it sounded like a lack of age restrictions. Well, the bill clearly had a lot of information on age restrictions. But what that did, and the minute I heard that, read that, I'm going, ugh, what is this going to do to the efforts the next day? And from the Democrat perspective, you've got the leader within the party, not within the legislative body, but a statewide leader making a statement that could affect the thinking of a whole lot of the members of the General Assembly. That was just one example of a number of things that happened that were going, you want to jump in, correct it, share with people what we understand to be the clear information about it. It was just one of many things that led to the outcome you talked about on Tuesday, John, where the House Republican caucus decided not to bring it up. I don't know if you want to go on, but what we have heard since is that the Speaker and others in leadership want something to happen, and that they're looking at forming a committee sometime soon to try to see how can they move ahead with this. Because if nothing happens this year, then we're looking at the legislature won't be back until March or whatever to actually start taking up proposed legislation. And everybody, I think, agrees something needs to happen. So hopefully, whether it's this new committee that'll be formed can make things move ahead, hopefully things will.
Yeah. Speaking of the choir and the cacophony of noise surrounding this, there are a lot of people who are in favor of this legislation. There are a lot of people in favor of a federal regulation, which we're going to talk about in just a second. 35 attorneys general across the United States have joined in this movement calling on federal restrictions. Those federal restrictions were set to take place in November, but there's been some pushback on that timeline. And what we're learning is that they are possibly suspending those restrictions until December or later. But another voice has spoken into this. Our very own North Carolina Senator Ted Budd has spoken into this and calling the executive administration, President Trump, to enforce these restrictions at the original timeline in November, despite the concerted effort, not just at the state level, but naturally at the federal level as well, to push these restrictions and the safety of our citizens further back. It's remarkable. We found a magazine floating around in the building of these products, and it was
a catalog.
A catalog of wholesalers' product. And the stuff in the catalog, just remarkable. Many of them clearly marketed at children, and then clearly illicit drug material in the catalog as well. So there's a lot to be said here. John, how do we need to look at this moving forward?
Well, obviously the first thing we need to do is pray.
Yes.
Pray for wisdom. Pray for wisdom for our leaders to make decisions that are in the best interest of the citizens of the state, and especially children who have full access to these very harmful products right now. The federal standard that we're talking about would impose much more restrictive guidelines and parameters for what products are legal and illegal to be sold. This legislation would have imposed basically that new federal standard in advance of it going into effect, based on the effective date of the legislation. But from what we understand, the new federal standard, which North Carolina would have adopted if adopting this conference report, would have removed like 95% of course, the most harmful, addictive products off of store shelves. That unfortunately is not going to happen immediately, so we want to continue to encourage especially members of the State House to study and understand this issue, for the Speaker, Destin Hall, to call together a committee in the House to come up with an effective plan that's going to put some standards into effect in North Carolina, because it's been said by many, it's pretty much the Wild West out there now. Kids have access to a lot of these drugs. They can go into convenience stores, vape shops, smoke shops, and buy this stuff that is very, very harmful and very addictive.
Absolutely. To learn a little bit more about this, we've written an article outlining some of what this bill is going to cover, including a link to the bill itself, the conference report itself, so you can read exactly what this bill would do if enacted into law through the legislative process. So, Jerry, any final thoughts on this as we move forward?
Well, it's just as you said, John. Please join us in praying about this. I think we mentioned before, it's part of the beauty of how government can work when you have a House and a Senate that deliberate and work through differences. This issue continues to be one where one chamber passes one version, another chamber has passed a different version, and then they send it over to the other and they make changes in each other. Obviously, this needs to come to an end, and a good end, where they come together and say, this is what needs to happen to protect the people of North Carolina. And this is, I mean, we always say, sadly, a lot of times we pray when we get to the end of a process where we're going, oh no, what do we do now? It obviously needs to be the way everything starts, but it clearly needs to be what happens now in order for things to move ahead. The division and the tension has gotten stronger and stronger, and what needs to happen, obviously, is the coming together of the two chambers is critical.
And I would just add to that, especially when we see all the leading law enforcement and public safety groups, organizations coming together in support of this and calling on our legislators to do something. The testimony that was given by several representatives of those organizations were remarkable, that on a daily basis they're hearing about children and individuals who are being harmed by these products, the problems they're creating in communities all across the state, and that it's consistent and that everybody agrees that something has got to be done. And so something does need to be done. But Jerry, again, we need to be in prayer for wisdom about that and for our state leaders to act in a way that's going to help do the best that they absolutely can do to protect families and children in our state.
Absolutely. Some news out of Western North Carolina for those of you who have not heard. North Carolina's congressman from the 11th District, Chuck Edwards, has withdrawn his name from the ballot moving forward in the 2026 general election. We're not going to get too deeply into all of the allegations and accusations, but he has removed his name, which, John, leads to a process that the Republican Party there in that area has to put a name, or presumably has to put a name on the ballot. They're working through that process now. There's a lot of speculation, Jerry, as to who they'll put on the ballot and what that does through a series or chain of events downward through through the different chambers of different bodies. So John Chuck Edwards, who's no stranger to our organization over the years.
Right. He served in the state senate, was a good member, stood in some hard places at times in favor of pro-family, pro-life legislation. Unfortunately, has come under allegations of some inappropriate behavior and things of that nature. Has said he will plan to serve out the remainder of his term, but is not going to run again. He will withdraw his name from the ballot, as you said, Mitch. And so the local party has a period of time to basically put a name forward to take his place on the ballot. And if that happens to be a currently serving member of the state legislature, then there could kind of be a domino effect where they might file for that seat, and then there's going to have to be a replacement selected for them. And depending upon where that person comes from, it could continue on. But the election will take place in early November, and the ballots have got to be printed and distributed and available, beginning with overseas mail-in ballots and those types of things. So there is a finite time period where these changes have to take place. So it's going to be interesting to see how this develops over the coming weeks, and it's going to happen over the coming weeks in order for the ballots to be updated and changes to be made. So
we're paying pretty close attention to this. From my understanding, that local executive committee of the party is going to meet this coming Monday and Tuesday evening to work through that process to ensure that they have the right names for what they believe will be their success in November. So we'll keep an eye on that. The reason why we're going to keep an eye on that is because we've got a voter guide coming out, Jerry. We've got a voter guide coming out soon in regard to all the candidates at U.S. Senate, all of our judicial races, and then all of our House and Senate races as well. So our staff has been working diligently to get those surveys together.
All right. And as you say, that will affect, there's a congressional seat here, and then the changes that may happen with some of the legislative races based on what happens in the decision about who's going to be on the ballot.
Absolutely.
Representing that area.
So we'll have hundreds of thousands of voter guides coming out this fall, including a website where you can go. It's very interactive. You can put in your address. It will tell you who is on your ballot as far as state or U.S. Senate, and then the judicial races, U.S. House, thank you, state Senate and state House, and then where they stand on the issues. So that'll be coming to you soon.
And it'll actually, the website will go live in the beginning of October, and the print versions of the voter guides will be available before early voting starts in mid-October. So we're still in the process of collecting those candidate questionnaires from the candidates and compiling all that into both the print version and the web version of the voter guide. Those will be available at that time.
Very good.
Additional note on that. Actually had a call this morning from someone who said they help make the guides available in their church, which as far as our printed copies, that's where the vast majority of those voter guides go out. It's through churches across North Carolina.
And we'll have a web page on our website, and we'll be promoting that, where you can go ahead and pre-order voter guides in bulk for distribution at your church, your civic group, your community organization, for your neighborhood. If you got a big family, you can order voter guides and
your
make
county
sure
fair.
Every voting age person in your family has copies, so that we will be publicizing that in the near future. And so you can go ahead and secure your voter guides, and we'll let you know more about that closer to the time.
Well, yes, sir.
Mentioning of fairs, and it's interesting, the state fair, one year, this is great for us, the Democrat and Republican Party each had a booth at the state fair. They each put our voter guides out. We are a nonpartisan organization. I don't know whether this happened before or since, but it was kind of neat for them to recognize this is a nonpartisan guide, letting people across North Carolina know where the candidates stand on the issues.
So you very well could get a corn dog and an NC Family voter guide this coming fall. On that note, it's been a great update video. There are links below to a lot of different things that our team is doing here at NC Family to ensure that families not just survive but thrive here in the state of North Carolina. On behalf of John, Jerry, Mitch, and the rest of our team here at NC Family, thank you for watching this week's weekly update video. God bless you. We hope you have a great weekend.